Okay, in this video, we are going to calculate a bank's level of excess reserves, right? So remember, excess reserves are equal to a bank's reserves minus required reserves, right? The level of reserves that's required to hold by law, all right? Where required reserves are, again, the required reserves are the required reserve ratio times the quantity of deposits, right? Okay. So required reserves are the required reserve ratio, right? So RR here, times the level of deposits. Okay, so now let's look at a bank's balance sheet, right? So that we can work out an example. So notice over here we have a bank's balance sheet. It has reserves 4,000, loans 7,000, bonds $9,000 worth, and then the deposits has $20,000 worth of deposits, right? Okay, so we'll be using those numbers, right? So let's assume that the required reserve ratio happens to be 0.1, right? 10%, which happens to be the required reserve ratio in the United States as I'm making this video. So the required reserve ratio is 0.1, right? 0.1, 10%. The level of deposits is $20,000, right? So 0.1 times $20,000, that means that this bank, since it has $20,000, it must hold $2,000 in reserve, right? That's the level of required reserves. However, notice that this bank is actually holding $4,000 in reserves, which means it probably has some excess reserves. So again, the level of excess reserves is equal to reserves minus required reserves. Again, reserves are $4,000. We just calculated required reserves, which is $2,000. So that means its excess reserves are the $4,000 it has in reserve minus what it has to hold, the $2,000, the required reserves. So the bank has excess reserves that are also equal to $2,000. So this bank is holding on to a little bit more in reserve than it has to, right? Actually twice as much. All right. Thank you very much for watching.